All right, today we're gonna make some stirred tiki cocktails. Well, not really tiki, more tropical or at least rum based because, well, when I posted the stirred Mai Tai old fashioned, you guys requested more stirred tiki cocktails. So this is what I came up with. Hey, so I'm Andy and welcome to Mixing Up Tiki. And today we're gonna be taking a look at stirred tiki cocktails, although they're not really tiki. Let's be honest, tiki doesn't really come in a stirred fashion. And anything that is tiki-esque but stirred is typically either proto-tiki or modern tiki. We don't have really any classic tiki cocktails that are stirred. And that's because of the way that tiki cocktails are built. Most tiki cocktails follow a format of a sour. So you have some type of citrus, you have a sweetener, which is usually split between a syrup and a liqueur, and then you have your base spirit. Those things in and of itself make stirred tiki cocktails pretty much non-existent. But that doesn't mean that stirred cocktails with tiki flavors or tropical flavors or even just rum-based stirred cocktails don't exist because, well, they absolutely do, and I'm gonna show you 3 of them today. All right, let's just get into it. The first one that we're gonna be taking a look at today is one that most people actually have never even heard of, but it's a relatively modern cocktail. It's by Chris Hanna and it's called the ByWater. Now, Chris made this as kind of a Green Point riff, which is a riff on a Manhattan. So we kind of have a riff of a riff of a riff. But anyway, Chris wanted to take the traditional Manhattan template or the Green Point template and really infuse some more New Orleans and Caribbean flavors into it. And so he came up with the ByWater. To make the ByWater, you are going to need aged rum. I'm going with Bacardi 8, green Chartreuse, Averna, Falernum, Peychaud bitters, and orange bitters, ideally Regan's. All right, let's build this thing. First, in our mixing glass, we're gonna start with 2 dashes of our orange bitters. Follow that up with 2 dashes of Peychaud bitters. Next, we're gonna do a 1/4 ounce or 7.5 milliliters of Falernum. 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of Averna. 3/4 ounce or 7.5 milliliters of green Chartreuse. And 1.75 or 52.5 milliliters of an aged rum. Now we're gonna take ice by cracking 1 large cube and then filling with small cube. Now give this a good coupe stir for about 20 to 30 seconds. Now grab a chilled coupe glass or Nick and Nora and strain the cocktail in. I'm gonna garnish with a orange spritz. I'm using my orange aroma and a cocktail cherry. And there you have it, the ByWater. Let's give it a try. This thing, while it doesn't scream tiki, screams tropical. We get a lot of that herbaceousness from the green Chartreuse. The aged rum is doing a great job of coming in on the back end with some oak and some vanilla notes. The Averna and the Falernum are a little lost, to be honest, because the Chartreuse is such a bully. So it's a little unbalanced in that way, but it's still a delicious cocktail. On the nose, because of that orange aroma that I used, you get a nice big whiff of orange right up front. Now again, this is not a stirred tiki cocktail, but honestly, if I were to go to a tiki bar and I was like, hey, serve me a stirred cocktail, and they served me a ByWater, I wouldn't hate it. It's got the same flavor profile, it's in that same realm, right? It's like it's being in the same room as other tiki cocktails, but it's off on the side with its own gang. Whereas like the tiki crew kind of hangs out, they've got their Hawaiian shirts on, they're partying, they're loud. This crew of cocktails, this stirred tiki tropical cocktails, are the ones that are kind of like sitting in the leather lounge chairs that are like reading books. They're like the more studious, the kind of like dark and mysterious ones. And that's kind of how I equate these cocktails. They're in the same room, but they are different, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I was actually first introduced through this cocktail by Truffles on the Rocks because he showcased it in his channel and did a great job, and I was like, I have to try that. All right, so moving on to our next cocktail, and this is definitely within the realm of stirred tiki cocktails, and that's because it's by Brian Maxwell. Now this cocktail is called Save the Last Dance, and Brian posted it in 2020 on his website, Shaker of Spirits. During quarantine and during lockdown, Brian, because he couldn't bartend and make cocktails that way, would make cocktails at home and post them on his website pretty much daily. Now, he did save the last dance towards the end of quarantine and lockdown, and the reason he called it this was because every single time Brian would move from one bar to the next for a different job, during his last shift, he would play Save the Last Dance, kind of as his like closing card. And so he wanted to create a cocktail to represent that, as he felt like these would be some of the last cocktails he would create on his website. So to make the Save the Last Dance, you are going to need an aged rum. Brian specifically calls for Appleton 12, an unaged rum Agricole. I'm going with Rum JM Blanc 50, Campari, Averna, and Angostura Bitters. All right, let's make the Save the Last Dance. To make the Save the Last Dance in your mixing glass, you are going to add 4 dashes of Angostura Bitters, 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of Averna, 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of Campari, 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of your unaged rum Agricole, and 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of your aged Jamaican rum. Now we'll add 1 large crack cubed and then fill with small cubes. Now give it a good rock stir for about 15 to 20 seconds. Grab a chilled double old-fashioned glass and drop in a large cube. Now strain the contents of the mixing glass over the large cube. Garnish with an orange twist or orange aroma. And there you have it, Brian Maxwell's Save the Last Dance. Now you would serve this with an orchid, that was what he garnished it with, but I don't happen to have any, so I'm not going to. And instead I'm just gonna give this cocktail a try. That is not what I was expecting. Wow. So for those of you that are paying attention, this is kind of a Negroni riff where it's equal parts and there's Campari, so that automatically makes people think Negroni. And you're not wrong. The problem is that it's a split base spirit. The base spirit is definitely more proportioned than the 2 modifiers. And then our second modifier is the Amaro Averna and not a sweet vermouth. This cocktail is, it's weird. I'm not saying that in a bad way, I'm just saying it's not what I expected. When I took the first sip, the thing that really got me was, surprisingly, a nuttiness, which I have no idea where that's coming from. It was really not expected. And then that devolved into this kind of Campari grapefruit, which was then followed by the kind of grassiness and sweetness that you get from a unaged rum Agricole. And all of that was on the back palate, finished off with a long drying note from the Campari. It's definitely not what I was expecting. It's a wild cocktail. It's not gonna be for everybody. There's a lot of flavors going on here that definitely compete with each other for ground sometimes. I'm gonna take one more sip, see if I can pull anything else out of this, because it is a very complex cocktail. There's this like intense, like nuttiness, and I have no idea where that's coming from. Maybe it's the interplay of the rum Agricole and the Averna, but definitely throwing me for a loop here because I definitely was not expecting that. Good cocktail, definitely wild, and definitely not for everybody, but I definitely suggest giving it a try. Some really common ingredients, so if you have it at the bar at home, definitely whip one up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But anyway, that is the Save the Last Dance by Brian Maxwell. All right, moving on to our third and final cocktail. Now, if the other 2 cocktails were kind of in the same room as Tiki, this is the one where we kind of bridge the gap. This cocktail is actually an original of mine that I created, where I wanted to play with the flavors of a jet pilot. So your rum, your falernum, your cinnamon, your grapefruit, but do it in a stirred, almost Manhattan-esque style cocktail. So this is called the Negril Aerodome, and it is an original of mine that I am super proud of because I think it's super tasty. To make your Negril Aerodome, you're going to need a dark Jamaican rum, preferably Caruba, moderately aged rum, preferably Chairman's Reserve Forgotten casks, an Overproof Demerara Rum, preferably Hamilton 151, Amaro di Angostura, Velvet Falernum, preferably John D. Taylor's, Grapefruit Bitters, preferably Fee Brothers, and a 20% salt solution. All right, so let's make the Negril Aerodome. In your mixing glass, add 5 drops of salt solution, 3 dashes of Grapefruit Bitters, half an ounce or 15 milliliters of Velvet Falernum, half an ounce or 15 milliliters of Amaro di Angostura, 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of Overproof Demerara Rum, 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of moderately aged rum, and 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of our dark Jamaican rum. Now add 1 large cracked cube and then fill with small cubes. Now give it a good rock stir for 15 to 20 seconds. Now grab a chilled double old fashioned glass and rinse with absinthe. Drop in a large cube, stir in the contents of the mixing glass over the large cube. All right, and then you have my Negril Aerodome. Let's give it a try. All right, so is this a jet pilot? No, let's be honest, it's not. It doesn't taste exactly like a jet pilot either, but it is so reminiscent of it. It screams jet pilot. You get that absinthe right up front from that rinse. You get the grapefruit from the bitters, and I prefer Fee Brothers because we already have a bunch of bitterness coming from the Amaro di Angostura, so we don't need a lot of bitterness from our actual bitters. What we need is we need grapefruit, and the Fee Brothers screams grapefruit with only a touch of bitterness. We then have the Velvet Falernum, and that's classic jet pilot. We then have the Amaro di Angostura. This is doing a two-fold part here. It is substituting our Angostura bitters, and it's bringing up the cinnamon notes that we would get from cinnamon syrup. Our rum base pretty much stays the same. Now, if you guys are paying attention, this is a lot of booze. This is a boozy cocktail. It is strong, as jet pilots should be. This is one of those like, do not drink more than 2 type deals, to be honest. And that's okay. That's what a jet pilot should be. It should be a bold, it should be a pungent, it should be a punch you in the face kind of cocktail, and that's what this is, and I am super happy with how this came out. And if you guys end up making one of these, I would love to hear your thoughts and comments in the section below. All right, well there you guys have it. 3 stirred tiki, maybe tropical, well, at least rum cocktails. So you guys were asking for these. I pulled these 3 together because I thought they were a good representation of what we can do with rum and tiki-esque flavors inside of stirred cocktails. But if you've got other stirred tropical tiki rum based cocktails that you guys would love to see, please definitely comment below. I'd love to make them on the channel. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and really a lot of your support comes from subscribing on Patreon. YouTube does not give a lot of money, I'm gonna be 100% honest, but if you guys subscribe over on Patreon, it's a little bit more steady for me, and it helps to really support this channel so that I can buy the spirits and the modifiers and make the syrups that I need to show you guys some of these world-class tiki cocktails. Well, tropical and rum based anyway. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, you know the deal. Take it easy.